You ever tell yourself you're fine so many times you almost start to believe it? That was me, a woman standing in her quiet kitchen, pretending that baking cookies at midnight was normal. I used to do it for comfort. The smell of butter, sugar and vanilla filling the air like I could sweeten my way out of loneliness. The truth was simpler, sadder. I baked because silence scared me. I needed the sound of something, even the hum of the oven, to drown out how empty my life had become. That night, I was shaking. Not from the cold, from the kind of fear that doesn't have a name. I'd just left my job, or maybe it's better to say run away from it. You ever see something you weren't supposed to? Hear something that makes your skin crawl because you suddenly realize the world you thought you lived in is just a lie in better lighting? I won't name names, not yet, but I'd seen something, and someone saw me see it. So there I was, flour on my hands, heart on the verge of breaking, telling myself I could just bake through it. If I just focused on the next cookie, I wouldn't think about the man who'd followed me from the parking lot earlier, or the black car that idled too long on my street before speeding off. The oven dinged. The sound startled me. I laughed, this tiny broken sound, and wiped my palms on a towel. I told myself I'd be okay if I just kept moving. I plated the cookies, the chocolate still soft in the middle, and I remember thinking how ridiculous it was to feel afraid in a place that smelled like home. Then the doorbell rang. It was 1:12 a.m. Every muscle in me froze. I didn't move. Didn't breathe. Just listened. 3 more knocks. Firm, unhurried. Whoever it was, wasn't nervous. That's what scared me most. I grabbed a kitchen knife and walked to the door, barefoot, heart pounding so loud it drowned out my own thoughts. I peeked through the peephole, and that's when I saw him. Black shirt, sleeves rolled up, top button undone. Calm. Too calm. He wasn't a stranger, not exactly. He'd moved into the house next door a few weeks back. I'd seen him once, standing by his car, talking quietly to 2 men in suits who looked like they belonged in a different world than mine. He'd caught me watching that day, and he'd smiled. Not a friendly smile. One that said, "I see you seeing me." Now he was at my door. "Open up, sweetheart," he said, voice smooth as smoke. "You left your oven on." I blinked, confused, and looked back. The oven light was still glowing, but it wasn't on. He couldn't possibly know that. "I don't know who you think, Lila," he interrupted softly. He said my name like he'd known it forever. "If I meant you harm, you wouldn't have time to ask why I'm here." That's what made me open the door. Not courage, instinct. He didn't sound like a threat. He sounded like someone who owned threats. The light from the hallway spilled onto him, his dark hair slightly mussed, jaw tense, eyes unreadable. He smelled faintly of rain and tobacco. "I made cookies," I blurted out, because apparently my brain short-circuits under pressure. He tilted his head, like that amused him. "You baked at midnight?" "I couldn't sleep." He nodded once, slow. "Then maybe you should let me in before someone else notices your lights are still on." It wasn't a suggestion. Every cell in my body screamed that I shouldn't, but I stepped aside anyway. He walked in, filling the room with his presence like the air itself bent around him. He stopped at the counter, glanced at the tray of cookies, and without asking, picked one up. Took a bite. The silence that followed was unbearable. He chewed once, eyes on me, and said in that deep, quiet voice, "You shouldn't have done that." My pulse jumped. "Done what?" He set the half-eaten cookie down, crumbs scattering across the marble. "Open the door. You said," he smiled, barely, almost tenderly. "And now you've let me in." I didn't realize I was trembling until he looked at my hands. He took a slow step closer. I backed away instinctively, hitting the counter behind me. "I'm not going to hurt you, Lila," he said, softer now. "But someone else might." That's when it clicked. He wasn't here to threaten me. He was here because of what I'd seen. "The men at the garage," I whispered. He didn't confirm it, but his silence was enough. "Who are you?" I asked, voice breaking. His gaze held mine, dark, steady, dangerous. "The man you should have never baked cookies for." I should have been afraid, and I was. But under it, something else stirred. Curiosity, warmth, recognition. like some part of me knew I'd been walking toward this moment for years without realizing it. He reached for another cookie, took another bite, slower this time. "They're good," he murmured. "Maybe too good. You feed a man like me something like this, and he starts to think you belong in his kitchen." I stared at him, breath caught. "You're insane." "Probably," he said simply. "But I'm also the reason you're still alive." The knife slipped from my hand, clattering to the floor. "What do you mean?" He leaned against the counter, arms crossed, casual again, but his eyes had gone cold. "Someone followed you home. I had them handled. I felt the blood drain from my face." "You handled?" He gave a faint shrug. "Let's just say they won't be bothering you again." I should have screamed. "Called the police. Demanded answers. Instead, I whispered, 'Why would you do that?'" His jaw tightened. "Because you didn't run. You looked me in the eye that day in the driveway. No one does that." The way he said it, quiet, reverent, almost, made my chest ache. Then he looked around my kitchen, at the cookie tray, the cooling rack, the flour dusted on the counter. "You really live like this? Alone?" I swallowed hard. "Yes." He picked up the knife I dropped and placed it gently on the counter. "Not anymore," I blinked. "Excuse me?" He looked at me like I'd just said something adorable and foolish. "You need protection, and I have rules about people who feed me. You're not leaving this house tonight." I tried to laugh, to find my footing again. "You can't just—" "I can," he said quietly. "And I will." Something in his tone made me stop. It wasn't a threat, it was final. "Who are you?" I asked again, whispering this time. He hesitated, just long enough to make me feel the answer before he said it. "My name's Dante Marino." The name hit like thunder. I'd heard it whispered at the diner where I used to work, in stories no one told too loudly. The Marino family, the ones you didn't cross, didn't even look at if you valued your life. I backed away a step. "You're the man you've been baking cookies next door to," he said, voice low. "And now you know too much." My heart slammed against my ribs. "What do you want from me?" He smiled, slow, unsettlingly gentle. "For now, another cookie." I stared at him. "You're insane." He took another bite, eyes never leaving mine. "Maybe, but you'll learn something about me soon, Lila. I don't take what isn't mine. And after tonight..." He set the cookie down, leaned in so close I could feel his breath against my cheek. "You are." I felt everything inside me go still. My fear, my anger, my logic, all quieted by the weight of his words. And the worst part? Some dark, hidden part of me believed him. I woke up in a stranger's house. Correction, his house. The sheets smelled faintly of cedar and expensive detergent, the kind of scent you only get when your world never touches dirt. I remember the first thing I saw when I opened my eyes. Sunlight spilling across a marble floor so polished it almost hurt to look at. For a moment, I thought maybe it was all a dream. The knocking, the cookies, the man who said my name like it was both a warning and a promise. But then the door opened, and Dante walked in. He was wearing the same black shirt from last night, though now the sleeves were rolled down, and there was a silver watch glinting on his wrist. Calm. Controlled. Too calm. "Good," he said quietly. "You're awake." I pushed myself upright. "Where am I?" He didn't answer immediately, just crossed the room and set a tray down on the table beside me. Coffee, fruit, and what looked suspiciously like my cookies from last night. "You fainted," he said finally. "I brought you here." "I didn't faint," I snapped, though my voice came out weaker than I wanted. "You drugged me." That earned me the smallest twitch of a smile. "If I wanted to drug you, sweetheart, you wouldn't be awake right now." I glared at him, refusing to be intimidated. "You can't just kidnap people because you think it's romantic." "I didn't," he said simply. "I did it because someone wants you dead." There it was again. The blunt honesty that made every lie I told myself crumble. I wanted to ask who, why, how, but I couldn't. Because deep down, I already knew. It had to be connected to what I'd seen. The argument, the gun, the flash of something I was never supposed to witness. Dante sat across from me, elbows on his knees. His eyes were on me, but softer this time. "You were in the wrong place at the wrong time." That's not your fault, but it makes you mine to protect now. I hated how the word mine made something flutter deep in my chest. I don't need protection, I whispered. He tilted his head. You do. You just don't want it from me. That silence between us, it wasn't empty. It was full of everything neither of us dared say. Finally, I swung my legs off the bed. I'm leaving. He rose at the same time I did, and for a second we were inches apart. He didn't touch me, but the air between us vibrated with heat, tension, something I didn't have a name for. You leave this house, he said softly, and you'll be dead before sunset. I stared at him. You think saying that makes me trust you? No, he said, but I'm not asking you to trust me. I'm asking you to stay alive. The next few hours felt unreal. I wandered through the mansion, all glass and stone and silence, while he took phone calls in another room. The place didn't feel like a home. It felt like a fortress pretending to be one. There were cameras, locked doors, and not a single window that opened all the way. When I found the kitchen, I almost cried. It was spotless, like no one had ever cooked there. Stainless steel, empty counters, no warmth, no smell of life. I found a jar of flour and a bag of chocolate chips in one of the cupboards. Old, half-used. My hands moved before my brain caught up. I preheated the oven, grabbed a bowl, started to measure. Because if I couldn't control my life, maybe I could still control how cookies turned out. That's where he found me. You're baking again, he said, leaning against the doorway, arms crossed. I didn't look at him. You said I'm not leaving, so I might as well make something of it. He walked closer, slow, deliberate. You're not scared? Of what? I said, cracking an egg into the bowl. You, or the people who want me dead? Both, I smiled faintly. Maybe I should be. But fear doesn't feed me. He studied me for a long moment. Then he reached over, his hand brushing mine as he took the whisk. You're doing it wrong. I've been baking since I was 9, I said. Pretty sure I know how to whisk, he smirked. Not like this. He stepped behind me, his hands guiding mine, firm, patient. The motion slowed, the air thickened, and I realized I hadn't taken a breath in too long. You really don't know how dangerous this is, do you? He murmured near my ear, whisking. He chuckled low. No, letting me this close, I froze. Then maybe you should back away. Maybe I should, he whispered, but didn't move. The sound of the whisk stopped. The world narrowed to the rhythm of our breathing. My heart was hammering, not in fear this time, but something far worse. When I finally turned to face him, his eyes were darker than before. Not cold, but burning with something that scared me more than any gun ever could. Why are you doing this? I asked softly. Why me? He looked at me for what felt like forever. Then he said, because the night I moved in, I heard you singing in your kitchen. I hadn't heard something that pure in years. It didn't fit the world I live in, I guess. I wanted to keep that sound alive. The way he said it, quiet, regretful, broke something open in me. We didn't kiss. Not yet, but the space between us changed forever in that moment. Days passed, maybe weeks. Time blurred inside that house of glass. He kept me hidden, watched over me like a shadow that never slept. Sometimes late at night I'd hear him on the phone, his voice cold, clipped, deadly. And in the mornings he'd leave coffee outside my door like an apology. I should have hated him. I should have wanted out, but I started to feel safe. That scared me more than anything else. One night I couldn't sleep. I wandered downstairs, found him in the kitchen again, leaning against the counter, reading something under the low light. He looked tired, older somehow. You don't sleep much, I said quietly. He didn't look up. Not since before I met you, I hesitated. Because of me? He exhaled. Because of what you saw. He finally met my eyes. You think I'm a monster, don't you? I didn't answer. I am, he said almost gently, but I'm the kind that keeps worse ones away. Something about that broke me. Because I believed him, I stepped closer. And what happens when you're the one who needs saving? He smiled faintly. Then I hope you bake something strong enough to bring me back. We stood there for a long moment. The silence between us soft for once. Then one a sound. A faint crack from outside. He moved instantly, gun drawn, voice low. "Get behind me!" My heart stopped. "Dante, now!" I ducked behind the island as the glass from the kitchen window shattered. 1 bullet. 2. 3. He fired back without hesitation, movements sharp and precise. When the silence returned, it wasn't relief I felt. It was dread. He turned toward me, blood on his sleeve. "Are you hurt?" I shook my head, eyes wide. "You're bleeding." "It's nothing," he said, wincing. I ran to him anyway, pressing a towel to the wound. "You said they wouldn't find us." "They weren't here for you," he cut in, voice strained. "They were here for me," my breath caught. "Why?" He looked at me then, really looked, and I knew before he spoke. "Because the man I killed that night, the one you saw," he paused, voice cracking just slightly. "He wasn't just anyone. He was my brother." The words hit me like a punch. I stumbled back, unable to breathe. "You, what?" He closed his eyes, jaw clenched. He betrayed the family. I didn't have a choice. My mind spun, so I didn't just see a murder. "I saw you end your brother's life." He didn't move closer. He didn't try to justify it, just whispered, "Now you understand why I can't let you go." Tears burned down my face. "And what happens to me if I stay?" His eyes softened, not with pity, but with something raw, vulnerable. "Then I'll spend the rest of my life making sure you never regret it." And just like that, I realized the truth. I wasn't his prisoner anymore. I was his weakness. It's strange, the things you remember after everything burns down. For me, it's not the gunshots or the sirens. It's the smell of sugar. The last tray of cookies I ever baked in Dante's glass house was cooling on the counter when the world ended. They came for him that night. Not the men who wanted me silenced, but the ones who wanted him erased. The family, the ones who had decided Dante Marino was no longer one of their own. He told me to hide. I didn't. He told me not to scream. I did. And when the fire started, when the walls shook and the windows shattered, all I could think about was the way his hand had brushed mine over a mixing bowl and how it felt safer than any promise I'd ever been given. I thought he died that night. For months I believed it. When I left that mansion, I didn't take anything except a small burned photograph I found in his study. Him and another man. Both boys in suits, arms thrown over each other's shoulders. His brother. The one he killed. I didn't know why I took it. Maybe because grief doesn't make sense. Maybe because part of me needed proof he was ever real. The police came, of course. Questions, statements, lies that tasted like ashes. I told them I didn't know who owned the house, that I didn't see anything, that I wasn't anyone worth remembering. And then I disappeared. I found a small apartment 2 towns away, started over. A job at a bakery that paid next to nothing but kept my hands busy. The first day I stepped behind that counter, the scent of bread hit me like memory itself. Warm, human, forgiving. Every day after, I baked like it could fix something. Like flour and butter could erase blood. You'd think healing would come quietly. It didn't. It came in nightmares. In the sound of footsteps behind me that weren't there. In the way I still checked my door twice every night. But slowly, piece by piece, I came back to life. There was this one morning. Soft sunlight through the bakery window. A kid laughing outside. The hum of the mixer in the background. And for the first time in forever, I didn't feel hunted. I felt alive. And that's when I saw him. Standing across the street, black shirt, sleeves rolled up, watching me like the ghost I'd been dreaming of for months. For a heartbeat, I thought I'd imagined him. Then he crossed the road. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. The doorbell chimed as he walked in. The sound so ordinary it almost made me laugh. He looked the same. Maybe thinner, maybe a little more human. A faint scar cut across his temple. His eyes found me instantly. Lila, just my name, nothing else. But my whole body went weak at the sound. I set the rolling pin down, trying to sound steady. "You're dead." He gave a small, crooked smile. "Not yet." My throat tightened. They said, "The fire." "I let them think I was gone," he said quietly. "It was safer that way. For you." The words broke something in me. "For me? Dante, I buried you in my heart. I grieved you." "I know." He stepped closer, slower than before, as if testing the air between us. And I'm sorry, but I had to disappear before I could make it right. I wanted to hit him. I wanted to hug him. Instead, I whispered, "There's no making this right." He looked down for a moment, then back at me. Maybe not, but I had to try. He reached into his coat and placed something on the counter. A small envelope, folded neatly. "What's that?" I asked. "The deed to this bakery," he said. "It's yours now. I bought it, before the fire." I blinked. "Why would you?" "Because I knew," he interrupted softly. "If I didn't make it out, you'd need somewhere safe. Somewhere that still smelled like you." My voice cracked. "You shouldn't have done that." "I know." His smile was small, tired. "But I've never been good at doing what I should." Silence filled the room. The hum of the ovens, the quiet buzz of the lights, the heartbeat I swore he could hear. "Why come back now?" I asked finally. His eyes softened. "Because the war's over, and I wanted to see if you'd still bake for me." That made me laugh. This shaky, broken sound that hurt and healed at the same time. "You think you can just walk back into my life like nothing happened?" "No," he said. "I'm walking back in because everything happened." We closed early that day. I don't even remember deciding to. He stayed, leaning against the counter while I mixed another batch. "So?" he said, voice low. "You still whisk wrong." I rolled my eyes, but my hands were trembling. "You still think you own kitchens you don't belong in." "I don't own this one," he said. "You do." For a long time, that was all we said. Just silence, the kind that feels full, not empty. Finally, I handed him a cookie. Warm, golden, soft in the middle. He took a bite, slow, deliberate, like the first time. And then he looked at me. "You still put too much vanilla." "You still talk too much," I said, smiling despite myself. His eyes lingered on mine. And for a second I saw everything he wasn't saying. Regret, love, exhaustion, hope. "I don't deserve this," he murmured. "Or you." "No one ever does," I said. He nodded, quiet. "Then maybe we start small." "Small?" He smiled. "You teach me how to bake. I teach you how to stop looking over your shoulder." I laughed softly. "That's your idea of balance?" "It's my idea of living." Weeks passed again, but differently this time. He didn't move in, he visited. Every morning before sunrise, he'd show up early, sleeves rolled, coffee in one hand, a crate of ingredients in the other. He said the bakery needed better sugar, but we both knew it wasn't about the sugar. We talked. About nothing. About everything. About the things we'd done, the people we lost, the way guilt doesn't really go away. It just changes shape. And sometimes when the world outside was still quiet and the first light of day poured through the windows, I'd catch him watching me, like he couldn't quite believe I was real. I never asked what he did now, who he was working for, if he'd gone back to that world. I didn't need to know. Because when he was here, his hands smelled of flour, not blood. One morning he came in later than usual. I was already halfway through kneading dough when I saw him standing at the door, a small brown box in his hands. "What's that?" I asked. He looked oddly nervous. "Open it." Inside was a cookie cutter, heart-shaped, gold-edged. Engraved on the handle were 3 words, "For your freedom." I felt tears rise instantly. "You didn't have to." "I know," he said softly, "but I wanted to." He stepped closer, brushing flour from my cheek. "You saved me, Lila, not from bullets. From myself." I shook my head, voice barely there. "No, Dante, you saved me first." He smiled, small and real. "Guess that makes us even." And then, finally, he kissed me. Not like a thief, not like a sinner. Like a man who'd finally earned the right to touch something pure. It wasn't fireworks. It wasn't fantasy. It was quiet. Steady. Like coming home after a long, violent storm. Sometimes I still wake up before dawn, heart pounding, half expecting to see flames licking the walls again. But instead, I see sunlight on glass jars, smell coffee brewing, hear him humming off-key in the kitchen. The world didn't become perfect. It just became ours. He still carries his scars. I still carry my ghosts. But when he reaches for me across the counter, sugar on his fingertips, love in his eyes, I remember what he told me the night he came back. We don't need to be clean to deserve peace. We just need to stop running from it. And I believe him now. Because sometimes the things that break you don't end you. Sometimes they rebuild you. One cookie, one heartbeat, one impossible love at a time. You know, sometimes love doesn't arrive dressed in light. Sometimes it walks out of the dark, carrying the parts of you that were too heavy to hold alone. That was my story. The one I never meant to tell. If you felt it, even a little, if it left you quiet inside the way it still leaves me, then stay. Like this video, subscribe for more stories whispered straight from the heart, and tell me in the comments, what part of our story stayed with you the longest? Because maybe, just maybe, you and I aren't the only ones still trying to forgive what saved us. Thank you for listening. And remember, even burned cookies still taste like home.